the action that you think is required is the question. I mean, do you think that the pieces of resistance, the reactions that you've chronicled in the film, whether it's the likes of Rashida Tlaib or the children of Florida, is enough to turn the tide?
It's not enough, but it is happening on a large scale. It hasn't really been covered that well in the media, but it is happening everywhere. It's happening in all 50 states. There are so many women on the ballot in November next month, a record number. Women are 51% of the population, and they control 19% of Congress. I would think if everybody shows up to vote, we will double the number of women in Congress, and many of them, most of them, are very progressive in their politics. There's a lot of young people on the ballot next month. These Parkland kids have been traveling the country in bus tours, trying to organize young people. So yes, there's a lot going on. But I don't, again, want to leave people with a false sense of hope, because remember, we're liberals. And that means we sort of suck at real aggressive action. And so everybody's kind of hoping and that the Democrats are going to pull this off and it's all going to be fine. And of course, people are going to come out and vote against Trump. He's so awful and he's so stupid and he's so whatever. But I don't think that's true. And I think that it's quite possible that the Republicans could retain control of both houses. I don't think that's going to happen, but it could happen, because when I was here 3 years ago, I was here the week before Brexit. And I traveled from London to Sheffield to Belfast, and I listened to people, and we were all, those of us from back home, we were like, wow, this sounds like Michigan, this sounds like Ohio, this sounds like, this is going to pass, even though the polls here were showing that it was going to fail. It didn't look like that to us, and it felt spooky in terms of how it sounded like where we're from. In other words, the people that we met that were in favor of Brexit weren't really, you could tell, really in favor of not wanting to be Europeans or wanting to leave Europe or leave the European Union. But because the parties and the system had failed them over the decades, Brexit became the Molotov cocktail that they got to throw to blow up the system so they'd be heard. And I said this here, I think the same is going to happen back where Trump, people don't like Trump necessarily where I'm from, but they're going to use him as the bomb to blow up the system that's ruined their lives. And that's what I left here very, very frightened by what I thought was going to happen in our country. And it's what happened. And I went back and told people, and they thought I was just telling a joke, or that, I was just trying to motivate people to vote. And I said, no, he's going to win. He's going to win Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. And I couldn't get anybody. In fact, I was booed on Bill Maher's show by a liberal audience.
And might not the people who did vote for him say, well, it's working for us. He's bringing jobs back. He will say, and his supporters will say, well, you call me a racist, look at black employment numbers. They've got a lot of the arguments deployed, haven't they, to keep the support that they won?
Well, they know how to manipulate. They know that the best lies are sold that have a kernel of truth to them. So if they find the kernel of truth and then they pack it inside the bigger lie that they're actually trying to push, they'll succeed with that. He's the white person's president. 53% of white women voted for Trump, 64% of white men voted for Trump. But the United States of America is 68% women, people of color, or young adults between the ages of 18 and 35. That's 2/3 of the country. So that's the majority, not old white guys. And I think the reason they're so, I actually met with Steve Bannon to convince him to be in this film. And we met first without a camera just so I could try to convince him. Clearly I failed because you didn't see him in the film. But I asked him the question at the beginning of the film. I said, how the fuck did you pull this off? I mean, seriously, because somehow you outsmarted the other side. You outsmarted one of the smartest people ever to run for president. So how'd you do that? And he said, well, it's a simple answer. He said to me, you're right. There are more of you than there are of us. We have to fight twice as hard because we know we know most people think climate change is real. We know most people don't believe that Adam and Eve rode on dinosaurs 6,000 years ago. But he said the difference between us and you is, he said, we go for the head wound, and your side, you like to have pillow fights. And we're going to win every time with that because liberals are pillow fighters. And it was the truth of it was so crushing to listen to this and know that he's right. That when we say we want universal health care, we mean, well, we can have some universal health care and we'll keep you on your parents' insurance till you're 26. And, we're like, we talk like this and it's all going to be okay. And, and their side is like, fuck you. We're not going to do this and we're not going to do that. And we will have control over women's reproductive organs. Get the fuck out of our way. Now, who's going to win that fight? We don't talk like that because we like to be nice and we're, we're decent and we don't tell lies and all that's true. But
in your heart, though, I mean, you talk about hope. In your heart, do you think he will win another term?
Yes, I live every day as if Donald Trump is a two-term Trump. And that how old are you going to be when you're in 2025? Does everybody, you all know your age, right? Okay, so add 7 years. You got that number? Liberal arts majors. That's how old you're going to be when Donald Trump is still president. So I act as if that's going to be the case. And anybody who thinks otherwise is only fooling themselves. This man is a genius. He's an evil genius, but he is a genius. And he figured out something. The way that he pulled off the Brett Kavanaugh thing was just so breathtaking. People on our side of the political fence still haven't caught their breath. And in the various airports on the way here in the U.S., people just coming up. Used to come up, they wanted to shake my hand or, take a selfie or whatever. They were grabbing my arm like this, really tight, my forearm, like a drowning person would grab it, and like, please, what are we going to do? How are we going to stop this? And nobody really knows. And the Democratic Party is just, they're going to try to throw up the wrong candidate in 2020 so that we lose again. We'll actually get more popular votes, I believe. Popular votes. You know what we mean by this, right? We'll actually win. Yes, we will win the majority of votes, but we may lose again because of the Electoral College. Well, they say that because they know we liberals, again, we don't have guns. We're not a violent people. And they think that they can scare and bully because they've got all the guns. So the thing you have to be is not afraid. And if we're going to stand up and fight for the things we believe in, our freedom, our democracy, our, the democracy in our case that I don't think we've ever really totally had. So you can't be intimidated by that. That's just the bottom line. You wouldn't be intimidated by that in your personal life. And I don't think you have. I don't know. I can't speak for your country, but I'm guessing a lot of people who voted for Brexit were what I described. They were upset. Nobody was listening to them. Now they got your attention. Message delivered. And that's what you should say to them. Message delivered. Now we're going to build a real Labour Party. We allowed the Labour Party to become a liberal version of the Tories. And we're sorry. Issue a huge fucking apology to the people of this country, and then get on with reestablishing either the Labour Party or whatever else it is you need to do to stand up for the working people of this country. And if you do that, they'll be with you. But otherwise, they're going to start to, I'm sure I don't know what percentage of how many people vote here, and if that has gone down in the last decade.
Depends on which election. I mean, the turnout in Brexit was very, very high. So.
Yeah, so, but look, I don't know, we were, right after the vote, we were back here and we took we ended up, I don't know where we flew from here to some place, and we were in that long line, and the Brits were still getting to go through the EU line at immigration, and we were in that long ass line for everybody else, and I just made a joke to the Brits that were going through. Enjoy that while you can, because every country in Europe, you're going to stand in this fucking line from now on. So nobody laughed really, but other than me, right? Was that implied in the question? All right. There is no credible candidate that's emerging right now. The ones you've heard about will all lose. Joe Biden will lose. John Kerry will lose. Cory Booker will lose. Who's another one? Who? Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, but we need to think. The Democrats need to think along the lines of a beloved American. Let's run somebody who's beloved, and that people are going to come out in droves for, not a politician, huh? Yes, I've suggested that for a decade or two now. That who wouldn't vote for Oprah? Who wouldn't vote for Tom Hanks? Right? Even the angry guy back there would vote for Tom Hanks. Or Michelle Obama would win. I think she would. She's a beloved American.
But that would be ghastly, wouldn't it? Huh? If you have to rely on Michelle Obama.
Oh, sorry. I addressed the angry guy. I didn't mean to.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah, I don't kick the hornet's nest. What was your question?
I said, wouldn't it be ghastly if you have to rely on Michelle Obama?
Why?
Because it's just family dynasties. It's the same problem as...
No, well, first of all, there will never be a black family dynasty in America. So it's like, that won't happen. But she is smart and good, and she's a fighter, but she's just one idea. I mean, what I'm saying is, if we think that we just run another wonky politician, we're going to lose. That's not where the country is anymore. And they maybe make people sad. They may think, why do we have to do that? Why can't we run somebody that's a little more intellectually, in our... Well, I'm sorry. We lost that chance. We lost that chance when you, who went to college for free, my generation, didn't stand up and stop them from now your children are going to be in debt till they're 40 or 50. We didn't stop that. We allowed our schools to be debased. We've allowed our libraries to be closed. You can get, what's that statistic I read recently? 30% of our top colleges, you can now get an English lit degree without taking, in the 4 years, without taking one single class in Shakespeare. How can that happen? I mean, this just is like, we've just lowered it and lowered it and lowered it to the point where we've dumbed down the country, and you dumb down a country, you end up with Donald Trump, and you end up with Brexit. Well, I don't agree with that. And I won't be surprised if he runs, or Howard Schultz, the founder of Starbucks, or any of these others now who are more liberal than Trump, but not really. And they've seen now that America, instead of charging the gates of the wealthy and the 1%, are now in support of supporting them. I read a book back in the 80s by a man by the name of Bertram Gross called Friendly Fascism. And in this book, he said the fascism of the 21st century will not come with concentration camps or swastikas. It will come with a smiley face and a TV show. And that is how fascism of the 21st century will sort of take over. The people will actually support it. They will willingly give up their rights for that if they are promised protection. And if they are given certain things, they can basically just keep their heads down and live their lives. It'll all be okay. I think we're in the middle of that, and not just in the United States. You're in the middle of it. Italy is, Brazil is, Australia. I mean, this is going on all around the world right now. I think that men, first of all, I think that we're at the end of men. I think this sort of 10,000-year reign is coming to an end, and that we are responsible for fucking up the planet to an enormous degree, and enough young people are coming up, and they understand that. Women clearly understand it, and people who are not white understand it. And because that, again, that is the majority of the U.S., the Trump people and the people that support him know it's the end. That's why they're so angry. That's why they're struggling so hard to maintain control over what they have, because they're the dying dinosaurs. So that sound you hear is the dying dinosaur that isn't going to last this century. And so unfortunately, we have to be part of this. We have to be witnesses to these dinosaurs, you know, and their time is up. I don't know what else to say. And a younger generation is coming up. Every year, 4 million 17-year-olds in America turn 18 and become eligible to vote. So that means 32 million Americans since Trump was elected have become adults and voters. And so I think we're going to see, my hope is in that, that it'll come from women and young people and people of color. Well, I didn't compare Trump to Hitler. I compared Hitler to Trump. That was I was saying that Hitler was Trump. I wasn't saying Trump was Hitler. Trump is not Hitler. Everybody knows that. But Hitler, that was Trump's voice coming out of his mouth. So I know it was a little bit of a it's tough to parse there, what I'm trying to say. But the point is that smart, intelligent societies have gone very wrong very fast. And democracy, which Germany was, democracy does not have a self-correcting mechanism. When democracy goes into a skid, the modern cars have a braking mechanism, if it goes into a skid, to pull itself out of the skid. Democracy doesn't have that. It's a piece of paper. That's all it is. And Trump or anybody else can take it right off the cliff if we don't do something about it. The piece of paper is interpreted in each generation or each era by the people who live in that time. And they can choose to abide by it or ignore it or amend it or whatever. I'll let Steve Bannon answer the question, because this is what he told me. He said, we met before. And I said, where was that? He said, I was at the world premiere of Roger and Me in 1989 at the Telluride Film Festival. It was a Friday night, and the film was being held in the Masons Hall down on Main Street. And I went in there and watched the film. I sat behind Roger Ebert. And I saw you on the way out. And I went out into the street, into the Colorado cold night air, and I thought, fuck, this film, the populist revolution is going to come from the left in this country, not the right. And he said, I was so depressed. I walked back to my hotel practically in tears because my hope was that the populist revolution would come from the right. And I thought, whoever this guy is, meaning me, this is the guy, he's going to lead it, or somebody like he and his friends, whoever, and this film is going to take off like gangbusters and ignite that revolution. So he told me this story, and I said, well, the gangbusters part was correct, but the left revolution didn't happen. He goes, that's right. And you know why it didn't happen? Because you and people like you on the left, your compatriots, you have to fight a battle on two fronts. I only have to fight a battle on one front. You're my enemy. But you have to fight me, and you have to fight the liberals and the Democratic Party, because they have made sure that people like you and the things that, you know, whether it's filmmakers like you or people who think like you or write like you, have made sure that you have no power or control. And thank God for that. Thank God that the centrists crushed you, because you would have won, because you're on the side of the people. The people actually agree with you, but the people are lost and have given up. And as we point out in the film, 100 million people don't vote. So he said that depression I felt after watching Roger and Me and meeting you that night was alleviated, not by anything I did, not by anything the right wing did to stop me, but because the Democrats and the people who were trying to make sure that the left, you know, those of us who were really trying to stop climate change 20 years ago. Those of us who believe that the universal health care meant real universal health care for everyone. All those things that we were fighting for. We had Democrats who took money from the National Rifle Association, Democrats who tried to keep things in the center or even a little bit to the right of center. And because we had to fight, me and others like me in the U.S., have had to fight this war on two fronts, we've not been able to succeed and get where we want to be at this point. This film is my rallying cry, especially to the 100 million, because all the polling and all the research shows the 100 million non-voters lean left. They lean left on all the issues. They've just given up. So what I and others are doing, whether it's the kids at Parkland High School, all the women who are on the ballot next month, all of us doing our own thing to pull people out of their despair and their depression and to understand this is the final moment. We're not going to get this back. If Trump gets 2 more years or 6 more years, that's it. You can kiss it all goodbye. He'll have at least 2 more appointments to the Supreme Court. It'll be over. So we all know how, I even debated whether or not to come here this weekend because I need to spend every single minute in the U.S. right now in these last 3 or 4 weeks before the election. But it's a weekend, and it's, this country and Ireland has been so good to me over the years. It was really, it was only like 5.5 hours. We had a huge tailwind. It was faster than getting to California. I was like, wow. I'm just saying that we are in desperate shape right now. The last thing Bannon told me was, he said, here's how we're going to win in November. We're running Trump. We decided not to run Trump for re-election in 2020. We're running him for re-election on November 6, 2018. So we're going to run him, and that's what he's doing. If you've seen him on the news, he's in 2 or 3 cities a day now. Sometimes, well, the rest of the month he's going to be everywhere. He said we're running him like we're running him for county commission, and he is going to. And we are making sure everybody understands it's the Democrat on the ballot, not versus the Republican on the congressional ballot, but the Democrat versus Donald J. Trump. And you've got to come out right now and reelect Donald J. Trump. And they are for this. They are doing it as we sit here. And believe you me, though, on our side, there's a lot going on. So it's how I don't want to give you, as I said, false hope. I do want to acknowledge 2 other people I just saw who are in the audience that I didn't acknowledge at the beginning that worked on this movie, if I could, before we end. A young woman who has worked with me now on 3 of my films, doing all the great archival work that you see in the film. And after we finished the film last month, she decided to move to London. I don't know what that means. Hopefully she's not clairvoyant. But I just wanted to acknowledge her, Madeline Steinberg, if you just take a stand and... And another person who was here with me in 1989 with Roger Me and has worked with me on all my films and has been a great support, my youngest sister, Veronica Moore. Veronica's here with us. So she is also a co-producer of this film.
And on that note, Michael Moore, thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, everybody.